Welcome to our channel. Today, Asus ROG Phone 6 Pro versus Asus ROG Phone 6 camera test comparison. Before we continue, please press the subscribe button and the bell notification icon to receive regular updates whenever we upload a video. Each year, Asus upgrades the ROG Phone line, and this year, we were given the great ROG Phone 6 Pro, which we gave 4.5 out of 5 stars after putting it through its paces. But does it differ from the ROG 6 phone it replaces, and is it only an incremental improvement? You can find out in this video as we put the two smartphones against one another to see the better one. You will find below the comparison. New triple camera setup. The ROG Phone series has never really placed a significant premium on cameras. We acknowledge that Asus continually gives players the most excellent possible match gaming experience. Everything else inevitably falls farther down the list of priorities. However, earlier ROG phone models could still feature a respectable, uninspiring camera configuration. According to specifications, the ROG Phone 6/6 Pro is ready to achieve the same. Unlike the ROG Phone 5 and 5S, which primarily kept the camera setup from the ROG Phone 3, the ROG Phone 6/6 Pro's primary camera has a brand new sensor. It now has a 50-megapixel Sony IMX766 as its foundation. The sensor that is 40% bigger than the previous years. Many BBK cell phones, including models from Oppo, Vivo, and OnePlus, feature this quite common quad-Bayer sensor. It is 1 to 1.56 inch in size and contains 1.0 M pixels. The previous 64-megapixel IMX686 is replaced, albeit it still shows up in various configuration references on the ROG Phone 6/6 Pro, perhaps as a lingering property. Nothing extravagant or extraordinary. There is only a straightforward 1 LED flash arrangement and no OIS or laser AF. The sensor itself, however, is reliable. Additionally, Asus has the innovative practice of maximizing the hardware capabilities at its disposal. In this instance, a small camera with a fantastic feature set was made possible by a superb Spectra triple 18-bit CV ISP. In particular, the ROG Phone 6/6 Pro excels in video capture with a remarkable 3-axis EIS up to 8K at 24 frames per second resolution, 120 frames per second slow motion at 4K, HDR video capture, and even a fully featured Pro video capture mode. The ROG Phone 5 and even the ROG Phone 3 did this before, so it's not exactly new. Though the feature set has mostly remained the same, Asus has raised the bar on quality in the background. The ROG Phone 6/6 Pro sports a 13-megapixel ultra-wide camera in addition to the primary 50-megapixel camera, which is relatively ordinary Omnivision OV13B, as reported by the OS. It has a field of vision of 125 degrees. A 5-megapixel macro f/2.0 camera comes last and most likely least. Our hardware research revealed that it uses an 8-megapixel native OmniVision OV8856 sensor. It serves as a specialized macro shooter and may be somewhat superior to having a depth sensor. The ROG Phone 3's ultra-wide and macro cameras were also present, and both are carried over from the ROG Phone 5/5S. Not that we are opposed to such a procedure. The ROG Phone 6/6 Pro uses the 12-megapixel front-facing camera from its Zenfone 8 brother. It is built on the Sony IMX663 sensor, a 1x2.93-inch sensor with 1.22 M pixels per inch. Unfortunately, for some reason, autofocus is not available on the ROG Phone 6/6 Pro. The UI of the ROG Camera app has a vastly unique design. It is remarkably feature-rich without being disorganized, in our opinion. All of the choices on the primary camera UI are clear to understand, maybe except for obtaining distinct areas metering for autofocus and exposure. This is accomplished by long processing on a place to fix both and relocating the AF circle. There is only one beauty slider to the right and no other options. You must switch to the specific portrait mode if you want greater control over it. It has detailed settings to slim checks, enhance eyes, brighten skin, soften skin, and alter the tone, in addition to a slider for the blurred effect strength. Scene identification is automated mainly by the camera app. A little scene symbol in the top left corner and an automated night mode UI that appears in the bottom right corner when the camera determines it is significantly dark serve as indicators of this. Pro mode has a surprising range of use. In addition to a histogram in the bottom left corner, you also receive a level meter in the center of the picture. WB adjustment ranges between 4500K to 7500K. The range of exposure adjustment is -2 to +2. ISO has a range of 25 to 3200. A manual focus slider and shutter settings between 1/60th and 32 seconds are available. Pro mode can save up to 2 different configurations. These may be quickly switched and are designated as C1 and C2. Neat! Additionally, very practical is auto exposure bracketing. You may configure an exposure range in Pro mode of up to plus and minus 2 spots. The camera will then take a series of images at various iOS settings and shutter speeds, creating a single image with a more comprehensive dynamic range, ideal for scenarios with many backlights. Additionally, there is a Pro Video Capture mode. It includes a useful smooth zoom option and the same controls on the right side as the Pro Photo. Simply clicking on a portion of the frame will cause the phone to zoom in progressively. While recording, the ROG Camera app also enables seamless toggling between the primary and ultra-wide cameras. Daylight image quality. Let's start with the 50-megapixel primary camera. By default, it takes 12.5 megapixel images, and they are often quite good-looking. They have good, largely true-to-life colors and are bright, tidy, and detailed. Regarding criticism, there were a few minor flaws that we did observe, such as a few sharpening artifacts, particularly around areas with excellent detail that would otherwise seem soft in the frame. These shills also require additional contrast, but that's a matter of opinion. You may force the primary camera to work at its maximum resolution, even if it's not intended to. However, since the 50-megapixel option is not available in the usual image aspect and size selector in the camera UI, Asus has complicated the process. It takes 3 clicks and requires knowledge to locate it in the same menu under camera options. That is nitpicking though. The majority of the high-quality qualities of their ordinary counterparts are still present in the 50-megapixel stills. Video quality. Up to 8K videos may be recorded on the ROG Phone 6/6 Pro. Since the previous ROG Phone 5 and even the ROG Phone 3 were capable of doing the same, it isn't a novel idea. However, the ROG Phone 6/6 Pro can only be 24 frames per second in 8K. Since Qualcomm's website states that the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 should be able to handle 8K at 30 frames per second, we looked into the source of this restriction. Given what the Snapdragon 888 could do, we would undoubtedly anticipate as much. Then we speculated that it might be a sensor issue, but because other smartphones like the OnePlus 9 Pro can output 8K video at 30 frames per second with an IMX776, that shouldn't be the issue. Nevertheless, it's a puzzling situation and one that Realme GT2 Pro, which has the same processor and primary sensor, and the ROG Phone 6 Pro appear to be experiencing. Regardless, the 8K video from the ROG Phone 6/6 Pro looks great despite the FPS difficulty. Both the colors and the detail are excellent. You may decide whether to record in the more traditional H.264 format or to conserve disk space by upping the compression to the more recent H.265 HEVC encoder. For the former, clips are stored with stereo 48 kHz AAC audio inside an MP4 container and an AVC video stream at about 130 megapixels for the greatest possible quality. But let's face it, 8K is still somewhat of a novelty, especially given that it's being recorded on a smartphone. Most people aren't. In all honesty, they should remain with 4K instead of bothering. Even on a premium 4K panel, the difference in detail between the two is insignificant. And 4K playback and decoding are now considerably less of a bother. The ROG Phone 6/6 Pro stabilization is available in a few different settings. First, there is a 3-axis EIS, which can be used with both the back and front cameras and typically perform a near-perfect job of blurring the footage. The primary camera may operate at any resolution, even up to the full 8K. Beyond that, there's a hypersteady, which is limited to 1080p ultra-wide since it crops so much of the frame. You may decide if we would ever utilize it in everyday life. Price. The cost is frequently the decisive factor for those debating making a purchase. And in the case of these two, that distinction is, in fact, crucial. For example, the price difference between the Asus ROG Phone 6 and the Asus ROG Phone 6 Pro is €1,099 and €1,299 respectively. Thanks for watching the video. Comment down below which part you liked most, or click on the thumbs up button if you liked the video.